You might be wondering why the cold case involving an 18-year-old girl was dubbed the case no one could forget. Her name was Amanda Stavik, but she went by the nickname Mandy. She was a well-liked, talented, athletic, and intelligent student who could speak Japanese, play the saxophone, and use sign language. On November 24th, 1989, Mandy went for her usual afternoon jog, but she never returned. Her younger brother Lee and elder sister Molly hoped and fervently prayed that she would return home safely. But did they get what they prayed for? 3 days after she went missing, Mandy's lifeless body was found with semen on it in the shallow water of a nearby river. Mandy was completely naked except for her running shoes. Despite DNA forensic evidence and an extensive police investigation, her assailant remained unidentified for more than 2 decades. Mandy's murder seemed unsolvable until, nearly 30 years later, a simple can of Coke was used to find her murderer. How on earth did Mandy disappear while jogging near her home, and her nude body find itself in a river? Was she raped? And if so, by whom? Do you want to know how Coca-Cola can lead the police to the true perpetrator of this heinous crime? Well, you should stick around and watch this video to the end, because the story that follows is full of twists and turns. Before we continue, please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for more mind-blowing, intriguing, and suspenseful videos that will leave you speechless. With that, let's dive right in. Since Mandy Stavik's mysterious death several years ago, no one has been able to forget her. Even decades later, the tragedy of her case is still brought up in conversation among her Acme community members. It all began in November 1989 when Mandy Stavik made a weekend trip to her hometown of Acme, Washington for Thanksgiving with her family. After the big Thanksgiving meal, that Friday, Mandy decided to go for a jog close to her home. Mandy Stavik's mother, Mary, usually went running with her. Mary would follow her teenage daughter on their bike rides through their small town. But this time, Mandy left on the afternoon of November 24th, 1989, taking Kira, the family dog, along for the trip. After some time, Kira returned home without Mandy. In a state of panic, Mary called Rick Zender, her daughter's boyfriend. She then called the police and everyone else she could think of. Mandy had mysteriously vanished, and it was indeed a Black Friday. The next thing that followed was one of the most intense, drawn-out cold cases the Acme community has ever seen. After a thorough search of the area, Mandy's body was located 3 days later, floating in the Nooksack River, about 5 kilometers from her home. Her body contained semen remains and showed signs of having been violently treated. The authorities took the DNA samples of the semen and kept them because the technology to analyze them was still in its infancy at the time. Everyone in Acme was in mourning because Mandy Stavik felt like everyone's daughter, and her passing changed the very fabric of the town. The people were on edge and became concerned that a murderer was present among them. When Stavik was found naked, investigators assumed that she'd been raped, and it was found that drowning was the cause of her death. She had scratches on her legs from running through the underbrush and had been hit in the back of the head. Her assailant and her clothing had both disappeared without a trace. As a result, investigators began searching for those accountable for Mandy's death and solicited the public for help, but the case dragged on without a conclusion. The horrific crime greatly affected the small town, robbing it of its innocence and making it the topic of constant discussion for many years. People were interrogated, and leads popped up and vanished. That same year, DNA crime-matching technology was in its infancy, but one of the detectives assigned to Mandy's case had recently done training on DNA. His training paid off as he immediately accepted the case. He and other investigators searched the area vigorously for potential suspects, and 30 men provided saliva samples to have their DNA tested for a match to the evidence found on Mandy. Sadly, however, the investigators came up empty, and the case remained unsolved for the next 28 years. It wasn't until the spring of 2017 that a man named Timothy Bass was discovered, while the police were still looking into the same case. He was 22 when Mandy had died and lived a few doors down from the Staviks. Mandy was friends with his younger brother, Tom. Timothy, however, left the area shortly after the murder when he learned that Mandy's case was being investigated. He married, had 3 children, and worked as a bakery delivery driver in his new area. Well, according to a neighbor near the crime area, she told the police that Timothy Bass may have had some involvement in the case. As a result, the investigators began looking for clues that could link Timothy Bass to the long unsolved murder of Mandy Stavik. However, there wasn't enough evidence for the police to obtain a search warrant for his home, his place of employment, or to even compel him to provide DNA samples. So instead, they went to the bakery where he worked to look for clues. When police first spoke to Timothy, he claimed to not know or even remember Mandy, which immediately raised suspicion in their minds. The fact that everyone was aware of the Mandy Stavik case and that she frequently ran past his house every day convinced the police that he was lying. Timothy further stated that he did not trust the police and would not provide them with his DNA. These scenarios made him the prime suspect. The cops went to the bakery on one occasion and approached his coworker, Kim Wagner. Kim was perplexed as to why the police were so interested in an elderly delivery man. After realizing the gravity of Timothy's potential crime, she decided to become a detective herself and assist the police. The police needed every means possible to collect Timothy's DNA, but there weren't enough opportunities because he covered his tracks so well. This prompted Kim to consider what she would do if it was her own daughter that had passed away and the cause of death had remained a mystery for such a long time. Kim kept a close eye on Timothy because she was determined to find anything that would aid in his capture. Timothy always wore gloves on his hands and carried out his daily chores in a suspicious manner. But on August 10th, 2017, Kim saw him without his gloves, drinking Coke from a plastic cup. After emptying the can of Coke, he threw it, along with the cup, into the trash and walked away. Kim quickly grabbed them with a glove and put them in her desk drawer. She contacted the police right away, and they forwarded the evidence to a crime lab. The results revealed a 1 in 11 quadrillion match between Timothy's DNA and the DNA taken from the crime scene. Timothy was finally apprehended in December 2017, which was exactly 28 years after the brutal murder of Mandy. When the trial began in May 2019, Timothy attempted to explain that he was having a secret sexual relationship with Mandy, which is why the DNA test was positive. His lies, however, failed to convince anyone. His case was heard for 3 weeks, and he pleaded not guilty. The jury deliberated for only 1 day before finding him guilty of kidnapping, rape, and murder. He was eventually imprisoned for 27 years. This appears to be Timothy's first criminal case. Despite the fact that he has no criminal record, he does have a domestic violence claim in his past that was filed by his wife. She claimed that Timothy was verbally and physically abusive both to her and her 3 children. She also claimed that he liked watching cold cases and true crime shows, so he believed he could get away with Mandy's case. In conclusion, Timothy's arrest was both a relief and a source of pain for everyone, particularly Mandy's family. The family's 30-year search for justice was finally coming to an end. Mandy's sister Molly described the trial as being like witnessing her sister's death twice. She compared it to a wound that just wouldn't heal. After watching this video, did you ever imagine that a simple can of Coke would be the answer to this mystery? What do you think about the technological advancements that made it possible to preserve a DNA sample for 28 years? Do you think that Timothy deserved only 27 years in prison for such a heinous crime? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Please share this video so others who love to watch cold cases like this can enjoy it. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.